Hello, and welcome to episode 52 of the She.Must.Knit podcast. My name is Erin, and thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope you guys had a great week. We had a really nice week. It was pretty much a regular week. The only interesting thing that happened was we had Avery's final retreat in preparation for her communion coming up in May. It was really nice. They did a lot of things. There was a movie, they baked some bread, and they got to learn all about the history, and they got to wear some of the priest's robes and stuff like that. She had a really good time. So that was really nice this week. And then, as I was talking about last week, the construction is still going on. So it is later in the day today. It's after dinner. Dennis has taken Avery to the park for a little bit. Hopefully I will have time to get this episode up. But thank you all for your feedback on my question last week regarding the noise and whether I should still try and record for Saturday mornings, or if I should pick a different day or another area of the house. Honestly, I have been all around the house while the construction has been going on, and there is nowhere where you can't hear it at some point. So I think I'm either just going to have to record when it's going on and figure out what to do with the noise, or like today, if Dennis comes home early enough, I can do it after dinner. And especially since the weather is getting better, they are starting to go to the park more. So that might be the new plan. But thank you for letting me know your preferences if you did. So yeah, what do I have for you today? I have 2 finished objects. I have some works in progress. I have an update on my bingo card, and then this is a chat week. So if you are a newer viewer, I like to alternate my weeks where one week I will do a collection with some fabrics voted on by you guys, and then the next week is just kind of a little chat where I talk about basically whatever I want. So this week is a chat week, and as I said the last time, I was planning on doing a little makeup chat this week. I thought it would be fun. I've mentioned before that I recently got back into makeup. This is now approaching 1 year since I've gotten back into the whole makeup world after a 10-year hiatus, and what a world it is. And yeah, I just wanted to share with you some tips that I've learned, especially if you have hooded eyes like I do. You might find them helpful. A website that I really like, some products I really like, just a few tips and tricks and stuff I thought would be fun. So that will be at the end of the episode. So I am going to start with a quick sip of my beverage. It is not coffee today. It is sparkling cherry flavored water because it is later. I try and drink my coffee at lunch, and then that's it. So that's what I have. And then we are going to move on to my finished objects. So last week I shared with you the KitKat hat that I made for Avery because she absolutely needed a new kitty ear hat for the warmer weather. So the one that I've made her before was fleece lined with yarn held double, so it was super, super warm, and she needed one for this kind of transitional weather. So this was what I showed you last week, and I had showed you that I had about 50 grams of that yarn left, and I was thinking of making something for her doll. So that is what I did this week. I used about half, so there's still half of the leftovers left over, but I decided to make, I asked her actually, I showed her the yarn, and I was like, would you like something for your doll? And she said yes, and I was like, I probably don't have enough to do both a sweater and a matching hat, so of those 2 options, which would you like better? And she decided that she would prefer a matching kitty hat. So that's what I did. So this is Little Avery, and that is actually the name that she came with. And she is modeling the mini KitKat hat that I made. It was very easy to modify the pattern for a doll. It is basically you're just working in the round, and then you do a 3-needle bind off at the top and stitch the ears. Usually on Avery's hats I like to do a little piece of felt, but you can see with these ones I just kind of stitched it with the yarn. I measured Little Avery's head just to see how many inches, and then I knew what my gauge was. Mr. T has just joined us. Hopefully he will sit down. He is sitting down on his grocery bag. I got it all ready. If you remember last week, I had to set him down on a grocery bag to get him out of my business, and so I preemptively had it ready, and it looks like he's going to lie down on it. So yes, I measured her head, I knew my gauge from Avery's hat, and from that I figured out how many stitches I would need to cast on for it to fit. It ended up being around 66 stitches. I did ribbing for a little bit, and then I knit straight until it went over her head enough that when I did the little ear pinch that it would still fit. And that's that. It was a really quick project, maybe a day and a half with here and there knitting while working on my other stuff, and that is done. So now she has a matching hat with her doll. The next thing that I finished was a work in progress last week, and I am so glad that these are done. So these are my micro stripe socks. If you will remember, this yarn started off as a different project. I was doing some mosaic knitting color work kind of socks, and I just couldn't get through them. That is just not my preference for sock knitting. I like a sock pattern that's either vanilla or with a very easy textural stitch, and these are kind of the best of both worlds because it's not really a textural stitch, but it's a little more fun than vanilla. For this pair, I decided to try the technique of helical knitting. And I have linked in the last two videos below a link to the YouTube video that I used to figure out how to do it. It's super, super easy, especially when you're doing it like this with just alternating two different colors. Basically, you're just knitting one row with each color, but instead of crossing them like you normally would if you were doing color work, you just drop the one that you just finished working on, pick up the new one, making sure they are not crossed, continue on with the next row, drop that one, pick up the other one, again making sure they're not crossed, and you just keep going on and on. Now, because I do these with magic loop, you can kind of see these are not blocked. This is where the magic loop cords would have met, and you can see there is no jog in the color rows. So it's just a really, really, really neat technique. I really had fun knitting them. It was like knitting striping socks, because they are striping socks, but every row, they just seem to go so, so quickly. So the yarns that I used for this, the kind of burgundy color is Artfield Bell, and the bluish one that with all the different kind of colored speckles is a sock blank from Stranded Dye Works. So this was a really fun way to use a sock blank, and I really like how they turned out. I think this was my first one. And I decided with this style, with the micro stripes, that it would be easiest to put in a German short row heel. So that's what I did. Now with the second one, I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but the heels are just slightly different. I'm still trying to figure out if there's a way that I can make German short row heels fit me better. Last year I made a whole bunch of my Desert Vista Dye Works socks with the German short row heel. It's a really enjoyable heel for me to knit, and it's very quick and it's easy to just plop in, but I find that it moves around on my foot. So with this pair, I tried two different things just to see if I could improve the fit at all, because I really do like knitting this heel. So with the first one, this one I don't know if you can tell, is just a little pointier. So normally when I do the German short row heel, if you've done it before or something similar with like any short row heel, you kind of work back and forth until there's a certain number of stitches that are unworked, and then you kind of go backwards and work the rest the other way, and that creates, so one half you're doing here and then you work back and you're doing the other half. So with this sock, I worked down to a smaller number before I started working the other half of the heel. And then with this one, I worked down to the regular number that I would normally, but before I started the heel, I increased a few stitches along this back part. So basically what that does is, because you're doing short rows, by adding stitches, you're essentially making it so that there's going to be more rows before you get to that number, that center number. So this is a kind of a bigger, deeper heel, and this one is just a slightly longer heel, but still the same kind of depth. So we'll see. I'm going to see wearing these if I notice any difference, and hopefully this is a way that I can incorporate German short row heels back into my socks. Now I don't see why this would matter, but it's quite possible that by doing a top-down sock with a German short row heel, I might be able to get my fit better, like the length of my foot. It's quite possible because in the past I prefer to go toe up, that I just wasn't getting this length quite right, and that's why they weren't fitting me. So by going top down, I might have a more accurate length. We will just have to see. But yeah, the only other thing I need to add to these is that, like my normal socks, I use 2mm needles. I started off with 80 stitches. I like 80 stitches for the top of my leg, and then right around the heel, after I finish doing the heel, I decreased my stitches down to 70 stitches for my foot, because I like a tighter, more, not a tight foot, but I like a nice fitted foot, but I like a looser leg. So yeah, so those are done. Last week I said I was hoping I would finish them, and I did. I finished them earlier on in this week, so that makes me really happy. I'll be able to wear them now because it's still sock weather. We haven't quite reached the temperatures where I am willing to go barefoot in my sandals, so I will still get a couple of weeks worth of wear out of those, which is really exciting. So I finished those earlier in the week, which meant that I could focus some attention on some of my other projects. And one of them, well, the first one that I'm going to show you is the Scott-based socks. So these are the socks that I'm knitting my brother for Christmas, and I decided to make them out of a yarn from my stash, some Lang yarn, which is going to be a super wearable workhorse yarn, because I mentioned that he tends to wear out his socks. And yeah, I finished the first sock. I think when I showed it to you last week, I had just started the increases for the heel shaping. And so yeah, I finished the whole sock, I did the toe, but guys, we have a little bit of there's a snafu, there's a problem, a dilemma with this sock. Do you notice anything? It is huge. I went a little ham with knitting the leg of the sock. It is much longer than I normally make socks, and that has caused a problem. I will get to that in a second. I think the reason that it is so long is because I knit the cuff, I knit the cuff, my usual 20 to 25 rows, and I usually like the leg to be about 6 inches, so this is 6-7 inches, but I don't think I anticipated how much room doing all the heel work would take up. This is a heel from the Jangles pattern that I did for my February DVD socks. The Scott base pattern comes written with a heel flap and gusset. So while I was knitting this first sock, and I got past the heel, and I think I was about here, so I had finished all the heel shaping, I joined back in the round, and I was working down the foot, I noticed that the ball was seeming a little light, a little squishy, a little more squishy than one would think a ball would be when you are not done your first sock. So I weighed the ball, and yeah, it was already past like the halfway mark, and I wasn't done the first sock. And I was like, darn it, what am I going to do? Because I didn't want to rip it out, but I knew I would probably not have enough to do the second sock exactly the way that I've done the first sock. So just in case, I messaged my brother and I was like, hey, I'm working on your Christmas socks. It looks like I'm not going to have enough yarn to do the second sock the same as the first. Do you care if they're different? I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but do you care if they're different? And he was like, absolutely not. I just like to wear nice warm socks. He just likes the socks, which is what I thought. He doesn't care what they turn out like. So I figured I would finish this sock. I did do a contrast toe, and with that I did the contrast toe in some Peyton's Croy, and then if you remember, this Lang yarn came with one of these little reinforcement spools. This is like a thinner, it's basically like a thinner weight version of the yarn, and you can knit it into the areas that need a little bit extra strength. And because my brother has a very aggressive big toe that tends to poke its way out of socks, I thought this would be a really good yarn to use for him. So I did hold that double with the Croy for the toe. This is a very dense toe. This is like a steel wool toe. So I am not worried about the strength of this toe. He'll probably still wear through it, but at least it should last a little longer. So that was my first plan for extending the amount of yarn that I would need for the second sock. The second thing I'm going to do, I did start the second sock, and I am doing, I'm using that yarn to do a contrast cuff. So I've finished my cuff. I'm just at the part now where I'm going to be attaching the laying yarn and working forward down the leg. But my plan is to knit this sock with the laying yarn as far as it will go, and I just want to see how far it will go. And then if I need to, which I mean I'm going to need to, but when I need to, I'm going to do a little surgery and put my needles through the stitches along the top here, and cut off the top part of this sock, unravel this, use this to finish off the sock, and then I will knit up a cuff with the contrast yarn. So in theory, I should still be able to make these socks match. It's just going to take a little extra effort once I get to the point where I've run out of that first bit of yarn. But otherwise, I am really enjoying this pair. The Scott-based pattern I really like. Again, the reason I chose that is because it was a pattern that I had in my Ravelry library from several years ago. I believe I purchased it in 2013, and one of my goals this year is just to use patterns that I already have, that I've already spent money on. So I'm glad I'm able to use that pattern now. I am enjoying it, and the stitch pattern is very simple. It's just a slip stitch pattern. It's 2 rows. It's very easy to memorize, and I would absolutely do it again. So the final work in progress that I have to share with you is my bulky weight sweater, and it's still the pattern that we discussed last week. I haven't made any other changes, and it's going well. I'm happy with how it is progressing, and I'm pretty confident, about 99.9% confident, that I am going to stick with this pattern until this project is finished. If you remember, not last week but the week before, it was a different project. I was making a cabled sweater. And then I just decided that that's not what I wanted, and last week I ripped it out, I restarted, and I am now working on the iced cardigan, which is a free pattern from Knitty. Last week I showed you that I had finished up to about my waist. It is a top-down cardigan, and this week I have finished the body. So last week, where my little narwhal is, that is where I was last week, and so I have finished all the rest of the body. I have cast off. I am ready to do either I will have to check the pattern and see if, actually, you know what, it doesn't really matter what the pattern says. I think I'm going to do the collar next, because it is a rather wide collar. This is the amount of yarn that I have left from ripping out my previous project. So this is Lion Brand Wool Ease Thick and Quick in the bonus bundles. This is what I have left from ripping out the sweater. And then I have 2 full balls after this. So my plan is to pick up and do the wide collar, and then I will go from there with whatever yarn I have left to do the sleeves, because this is just kind of going to be a cozy house kind of sweater to keep me warm. I don't need the sleeves to be full length. I'm not going out in the cold weather with this. Although during the transitional spring and fall weather, I could probably just go out and get Avery on and off the bus with it. But I don't really care what the sleeves are. Like, I'd like them to at least be elbow length. I'm pretty sure I have enough yarn to do full length sleeves. And I was also thinking, if I have enough, I might even add a pocket or 2. I don't know, because when I'm going up and down, like I go down to the basement to do any fabric prep I have, I do like to bring my phone around with me because I use that, and I often like having a pocket that I can just slip it into. It doesn't have to be very big, but I did try this on once I bound off for the hem. I tried it on. I really like the length. I really like the fit. I am so much happier with this project now that it is this just simple, cozy cardigan than when I was doing the pullover. So I am so happy that I decided to just rip it out and start over. So yes, that is all the progress on my works in progress that I have been sharing with you. And then the final bit of knitting I have for you is the progress on my bingo card. So if you are not aware, over in the Bling Your String group, we do a yearly challenge called the Crafty Bingo challenge. And anyone can participate at any time in the year. You just have to pop over, say you'd like to play along. I will make a bingo card for you, and you can fill it up with whatever goals you want. They can be as simple as you want, they can be complex. You could have squares being like one project each, or you can do squares where there's multiple projects that you need. It all depends on your how much time you have to knit, how many projects you tend to make, what kind of projects. It's all up to you. So again, you can join anytime. So if this seems interesting to you, then feel free to pop over and say you'd like to play along. There's lots of chat there. Everybody is showing their progress on their cards. It's a very inspirational thread. So even if you don't want to play along, I would go check it out, because it's really, really cool. I always love every year just seeing the types of goals that everybody wants to accomplish, and then it's just so satisfying when people post and say, oh, I completed a square, or oh, I'm almost done this square, or yeah, just seeing everybody's projects and enthusiasm is just, it's a lot of fun. So I thought that I would give you an update on my bingo. The last time I shared this with you, it was I think at the beginning of February. And so it will be interesting to see how much progress I have made basically over the last 2 months. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an image of what my card looked like the last time I shared it with you, and then what my card looks like now, and I'm going to pop that up on the screen as I talk about what I have added to my card since. So since the last time I shared my bingo card with you, I have completed 3 more squares. One of my squares was to do the first 3 months of the DVD, the Desert Vista Dye Works Challenge, and that is done. Another square I completed was to condense my upstairs stash. Basically, this goal was I wanted to, upstairs, so in this room here, I had my stash in 3 places. I had it in the shelf here, I had a 9 cube unit that way, and then I had, there's some built-in shelves over there, and I had stash in all 3 places. And I wanted to use the built-in shelves for other storage, so my goal was to use enough stash and to reorganize enough that I could condense my stash to only this shelf and the 9 cube unit, actually, which is over there. I think I mentioned last week that I was rearranging this room. So the 9 cube unit is now across from me, but I was able to do that, and there is no yarn currently being stored over on the built-in shelves. Now I have my spinning stuff over there, and I was able to get 2 pieces of furniture out of this room and relocate it into other areas of the house. So this is just, it's not as cluttered in here. So I am so happy that I was able to cross off that square. And then the last square that I was able to complete is to catch up on my granny square blanket. I think 2 or 3 episodes ago I showed you that I had gotten all the yarns from 2018 or earlier into my granny stripe blanket, and it is now all ready for any of the new yarns from my project. So those were the 3 squares that I completed. And then I made progress on a whole bunch of squares as well. I added 2 pairs of socks to my gift sock goal. I want to make 6 over the year. I added 2 to that. I added 2 patterns from stash. So I think I want to do 10 patterns from stash, basically patterns I already have. I added 2 to that goal. I added 1 to using 3 sock blanks from stash. So my micro stripe socks have added to that goal. I wanted to spin 3 skeins of hand spun. I have done 2, so I've added that. And then I've added 3 knits for kids. So I want to make 10 knits for kids, Avery or other. I added 3 to that. I think I only have one or 2 left. And technically, I was thinking about this week. If you'll remember the headphone cozy that I made for Avery, and then also this doll hat, I was like, well, technically, I made those for her, so I could use those on this square, but that's not what my plan was for the square. It was more like bigger items like garments and stuff, so I still have 1 or 2 things to make for that square, but I have no doubt that I will finish that probably within the next month or so. So yeah, that is all the stuff that I added to my bingo card, and I am very pleased with us at the end of the 3rd month. The amount of progress that I've done. I'm feeling really, really good about this card. If you've played the Crafty Bingo before, you know that in the midpoint of the year, there is an opportunity to change up goals that you've changed your mind about. And right now, that could change, but right now I'm still pretty content with what I decided to try and do this year. Hopefully I won't have to change too many because I really do want to complete all the goals that I've decided on so far. So yes, I believe that is all the knitting I have for you today. So again, this is a chat week, and what I want to chat about is just the fun of makeup that I have rediscovered. So what I'm going to be talking about, I think if you are already like a makeup savant, I don't know if you will find any, you never know, but you probably know all this stuff already. If you have absolutely no interest in makeup and never wear it at all, you might not be interested in this, but if you are like me and are a dabbler and just kind of like to try things here and there, there might be some stuff in here that you find interesting. Like I said, last year, after kind of getting out of it for 8 to 10 years, I wore it in high school, I wore it in university, but just like bare minimum, like just your basic makeup. And then I know once I had Avery, I basically was like, why bother, right? And then just this past year, I was like, you know what? I kind of miss the fun of it and just the self-expression of it. And the makeup world has come a long way. Oh my goodness. So I have just been absorbing everything and learning all kinds of things. And there's been a lot of stuff that I've learned that has been very helpful. And if you are someone who dabbles or are interested in trying some things out, some of this might be helpful for you. So the first thing that I thought I would talk about is just if you're someone who wants to get back into it and you're just starting, like if you walk into, like here in Canada, there's not a whole lot of different places. Like you've got your Walmart, and I guess like you guys in the US, I hear all this stuff about Ulta. I am so jealous that you guys have Ultas. It sounds amazing. I think the closest thing we have to that is our Shoppers Drug Mart, but I think the cosmetics section is much smaller. Like there's very little high-end stuff in our Shoppers Drug Mart. It's mostly the drugstore brands. But if you don't know what you're looking for and you walk into one of these places, it is super overwhelming. There are so many brands, and each brand has so many products, and they are coming out with new products all the time. Part of getting back into makeup is I've also discovered beauty channels on YouTube. And they are always talking about the latest releases and what the brands are coming out with. And there's stuff like, there's enough for like all the channels I watch, and I watch a lot of channels, to talk weekly about the new stuff coming out. Like if you think the yarn industry is bad with new stuff coming up all the time, yeah, every week there is new releases. And so it can be very overwhelming. And at first you kind of, like, especially if you watch reviews, you're like, oh, this sounds good, you know, maybe I'll go pick that up and try that out. But I know here in Canada it's not quite the same as US, where there's a lot of places where you can return something. So if you buy something and it doesn't work for you, you can return it. A lot of the places here you can't do that. So you have to be a little more selective about what you try and a little more careful, because if you buy it and it doesn't work, you've lost out on that money. So what I have learned through my own experience and just watching, you know, what's going on, is that the first thing that I would really recommend before going in and like deciding on any products that you want to try out is just to know your face. Like, it sounds really basic, but now that I've discovered and learned about not only stuff that I can't really control about my face, and then stuff that just preferences, it really knocks out a lot of those options. So a lot of the things that may overwhelm you, you can cross out immediately because they're not going to work for you, or they're not going to work for your preferences. So I have learned to know your face. So in that way, a lot of products are made for different skin types and different skin tones, and then again, different skin finishes. So it's really good to know what your skin type is, and there's really 3 main categories. There's like dry, normal, and then oily, and then you can have kind of mixtures of the 3, like, you know, you can be normal oily or normal dry or whatever. But if you know what type of skin you have, you can knock off a huge amount of things. I have normal skin, And so I don't need the products that are designed for people with oily skin. So that just knocks off a whole whack there. And in the same way, I don't need the super moisturizing products that are developed for dry skin, because I don't have that either. So it just helps you focus a lot. Again, with skin tone, so there are different undertones to your skin. The basic ones are your warm, your cool, and your neutral. So if you know what your undertone is, again, you can knock off a whole bunch of products that are just not going to apply to you. And then the other thing was just your preferences. So this is something that I kind of figured out with watching different reviews, and you'd hear a whole bunch of people review the same product, and they might all say, oh my goodness, this is so great, I really love this, and you're like, oh, that looks awesome, I'm gonna go try it. But then you're like, oh, this isn't giving me the effect, I'm not as excited about this as they were. And part of that I've found is knowing your preferences. So using myself as an example again, I have learned that I really don't like a shiny, dewy, they call it dewy, a dewy finish to my skin, and I also don't like when it's super flat. So a lot of products are developed with different finishes, and the most common are a dewy or luminous, which gives you kind of that, you know, fresh out of the gym look, that youthful glow to your skin. And then there's a satin or natural finish, which is where you're not completely flat but you're not shiny. And then there's a matte finish where you're like flat, right? And I've learned that I like a satin natural finish. And so again, knowing that, it just knocks out a whole bunch of products that I don't even need to look at. So just stuff like that is really helpful. Learning what kind of colors work for you. And if any of this, like, you don't know, if you're like, I don't know what my undertone is, I would suggest go on YouTube, just put it into the search bar, you know, how to figure out your undertone or how to figure out this. Because there's a lot of people who have made videos to explain this. It's just like knitting. It's just like knitting. If you need to know how to do a certain cast on, you just pop it into YouTube. It's the same thing with this, and I've learned so many things. And the other area that I wanted to touch on with just knowing your face is just knowing your unique needs, because this can help a lot with what kind of products are going to work for you and what products are not going to work for you. So again, using myself as an example, I am approaching 40. So a trouble area, so identifying my trouble areas kind of helps narrow down what products to avoid and what products that might be good for me. My under eyes are not the under eyes of a 18-year-old, and also I have hooded eyes. So there's going to be certain things that just are not going to work for me because of that. And if you know what your challenges are, you can kind of pinpoint what things might work better for you. So I know for myself that a full coverage thick concealer is going to look absolutely horrible on me. I can just avoid those completely, whereas a thinner formula is going to work better. So that's just know your face, figure things out, figure out your preferences. It might take a little bit of time and a little bit of experimentation, but I think it's worth it. I'm at a point now where I really understand what I like, what I don't like, and so I can hear, you know, these new products coming out, or I can go to the drugstore and see a new display, and I can really dissect it and be like, nope, this is just not for me, and not even worry about buying things that are not going to work for me. So going into that, I wanted to talk about a website that I really like. And I think this is a good place to start if you were like me or are like me and like to dabble. But I'm on a budget, and I know a lot of other people are on budgets too, and makeup can be expensive. Even at the drugstore, you're looking at $10, $15, $20 sometimes for one item. And that just makes it very difficult to try something new that may not work, and then you've wasted this money. So I have found, through watching YouTube, hearing about different places, I have found a website that I really like, and it is called Shop Miss A. It's based in the US, but basically everything on this website is around $1. Some of them are a little more, some are $1.50. Some of them are priced more because they donate some of the proceeds to animal shelters, and then some of them are more because they are in bundles. But generally speaking, everything on this website is $1, and I have found that the quality does not reflect the price. So I have found a number of items on there that have worked as well or better than things that I have paid, you know, 10 times the price for. So yeah, I just think it's a really good place if you want to try some things out and try some techniques that maybe you've seen places, try some colors that maybe you haven't tried before, and not there's not that same risk of wasting, you know, $15 on a lipstick that then doesn't look good on you and that you can't do anything with. So I really, really like that website. And I have a few things here that I've purchased from them that I think are totally worth it. Like, even with the option of going to a store and buying a different item, I would still reorder it from Shop Miss A. And a lot of the things that I really like there, and this is kind of going back to knowing your face and how, what your challenges might be, a lot of it can be helped by using the right tool. So again, like knitting, if you're working on a project and you're just really not enjoying it, you're having a lot of trouble with it, sometimes, you know how sometimes just changing your needles makes a world of difference? It's the same thing with makeup. Sometimes just using a different tool makes a world of difference. And I have found that you can get really, really good tools on Shop Miss A, especially their brushes. So I have some of them here. These are the ones I've really liked. This one has been a game changer for me. I have struggled with using concealers under my eyes. It just never looks good. And then I tried this little guy on a whim, and you can kind of see it's like a little triangular shape. Total game changer. So sometimes just changing your tool makes such a difference. But these are all just $1. And even if you go into Walmart and you look at the more affordable brushes there, they're still $3 to $5 a piece. These are $1 and they're awesome. They're super soft. I've washed them multiple times. They don't shed. They're just really, really good brushes. So if you want to try different things, because I find when I do my eye makeup, I can use, you know, 5, 6 different brushes to get the different effects that I want. But that's, you know, to pay 5, 10, 15, 20, some brushes out there are like $30 a piece. That's crazy. These dollar brushes, I can totally experiment with different shapes and stuff. So I really, really like their brushes. And then the other thing I really like for them is they have the makeup sponges. So if you're familiar with makeup, if you go into like Sephora and stuff like that, like the Beauty Blender, you might have heard of that. It just makes applying like liquid face products really, really easy and a really nice finish. And the Beauty Blender sells for like 20 bucks. And even the companies that have made similar sponges, they're still anywhere from $6, $10. This was $1. I think this might have been one of the ones that was $1.55 because some of the proceeds were donated, but still, it's so soft, it works so well, and it's $1. I'm not going to spend $10 on a makeup sponge when I can spend $1. So this is another thing that I really, really like from that site. And then this is another one that it's marketed for a different purpose that I use it for, but it has totally made things so much easier. So this is called it's a mask applicator. So you're supposed to use it with facial masks so that you can dip it into the little tub and, you know, put it all over your face so you're not getting your hands all grubby. But what I like to use it for is anything that comes in a little tub. So like if I have lip treatments, or if I have, you know, moisturizers for my face, or even like masks, sometimes masks, but anything where you have to reach your fingers into the tub, I just don't like doing that. Stuff gets caught under my nails. I just use this little guy. Now every time I have checked recently because I wanted to get another one, Shop Miss A has been sold out of these, but I have found them on Amazon, and they're still pretty affordable there if you just look up silicone mask tool kind of thing, and they're on there. But yeah, this has been really, really handy. And then I just wanted to highlight a few of the makeup items on Shop Miss A that I think are really, really, really worth the money. The first thing is this BB cream. I use this as this is just a light medium coverage. So again, knowing your face, I don't like full coverage. I don't think you can usually tell as much. If you've met me in person, maybe you can see it more. But I have a lot of freckles, and I just find if I use something that completely covers them up, I just do not look myself. It just, I feel weird. So I like my freckles to show through. So I like a light medium kind of coverage, and that's what a BB cream will give you. And this is $1, and such a nice finish. It lasts all day on me. Again, I have normal skin. If you have oily skin, it might not be the same. But yeah, it comes in different shades. That's another thing that Shop Miss A is pretty good about. They have a lot of things that they don't go super, super fair. I would say if you're lighter than me, they don't really go much lighter, but they have the whole range of medium to deep in most of their complexion products. So I really love their BB cream. This is basically empty, so next time I do an order, I will be adding one of those. I also like their little primers. So this is an illuminating primer. And this is an example of something that I am really glad that I was able to try out on Shop Miss A versus buying an illuminating primer at like the drugstore and spending $10, $15 on it, because if I didn't like it, well, then I'm stuck with it. This was $1. I was able to try it, and I found out that I really like it. While I don't like my face to be like glowy all over, I do like it in certain areas, like usually just kind of around here. And I like that I can put this on underneath my BB cream or foundation, whatever, and it just kind of adds a glow, like just you're glowing a little bit. So there's no sparkle in it, there's no glitter, it's just a very sheer natural glow, and I really, really like this. I would repurchase this as well. I will warn you, they have a primer that's called a blurring primer. Do not get that one. That has like gold sparkles in it. I don't know why, but this one is really nice, and I've tried their color correcting ones, which I really like as well. For eyeshadow, I'm not going to go too much into eyeshadow. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I love to buy single eyeshadows. When I started watching beauty YouTube again and getting back into makeup, I decided I was not going to be buying palettes wherever possible. That was just a huge, like, people just get to where they have so many, and I knew it would be overwhelming. I decided I was going to do single eyeshadows. But Shop Miss A has these little palettes that I would recommend. A lot of their smaller eyeshadows, really read the reviews on, well, I would say this for anything, read the reviews. But a lot of their smaller eyeshadows have kind of mixed reviews. But they sell these little palettes that have 9 eyeshadows in them, and what I liked about these is that these are removable. These are magnetic eyeshadows, single eyeshadows. So while I can buy them like this was $10 because each one is $1 and then the case. So this is an example of like a bundle price. But I can use it like this, like a little palette, but then I can also take these shadows out and move them around in my other magnetic palettes, which I really like. So if you wanted to try eyeshadow from them, they have a bunch of these little sets in different color combinations, and I've seen on other reviews that they are very well received. So that could be an option if you want to try some eyeshadow from them. So the last 3 things that I wanted to share with you are just some other makeup items that I really like. I think their finishing powders are quite nice, and again, they have these in a wide shade range. I wouldn't recommend most of their mascaras. I haven't been impressed with the ones that I've tried, but the one I do like is this little skinny one, and what this is good for is, do you see how tiny the wand is? This one is really good for doing your lower lashes if you like to do that and you don't like sticking a big giant wand there. This one is perfect for that. So I do like this one, and I do recommend this one. The other mascaras I would just skip over. There's some drugstore ones that I really like, but yeah, I wouldn't get those. And then the final thing are these lip products. They came out with these maybe a month or 2 ago. These are relatively new. These are so nice. They are pigmented, so they have a lot of color to them, but they're glossy, so they've got that little applicator there. They have a glossy finish, but they're not a gloss, so they're not like a sticky, you know, like some lip glosses are really sticky and thick. They're not sticky. They feel very comfortable on your lips, but they have a lot of pigment, a lot of color to them, but then they're not like slip slidey. Like when you put it on, they're on your lips, but you have full color, really nice shiny finish, but they're very, very comfortable to wear. And obviously not transfer proof. If you take a sip from a glass or something, or if you kiss someone on the face, it would transfer onto them. But otherwise, it's just a really, really nice formula. I have this really pretty red, and then I have this kind of nude color. And they have some other colors that I think if I get to where I want to place another order, I would order more colors. They do, like I said, they are based in the US. Their shipping to Canada is very reasonable. It's about $7. But they do take a while, so I know to wait. It's going to be at least 3 weeks before it comes, whereas in the US, I have no idea what their shipping time is like. I imagine that the shipping cost would be much less. I imagine it would be faster, but that's the only thing with, that's the only downside to this, is that the order does take a while to come, but I do think the items are really, really good. So the last thing that I want to end off with is just a few tips that I figured out if you have hooded eyes. So when I started this whole makeup journey, I honestly didn't even know what hooded eyes were. I did not know that I had them. And then just watching different people do makeup tutorials and showing different eye shapes and eye looks and stuff like that, I was like, oh, I have hooded eyes. And knowing that has just made it a lot easier to figure out what to do to work around them. Because basically, if you don't know what hooded eyes are, it's basically like this area of your eye kind of folds over your eyelid. And some of the challenges to that, there's different extremes. So you can have very minimal hooded eyes, or you can have quite hooded eyes. But one of the challenges to that is that when you do any kind of work on your lid, it often gets covered by the hood. And so there are different techniques that I've learned to kind of create an illusion that your eyes are less hooded. There are techniques that I've learned so that you can do kind of the detail work that you want and not lose it. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about, was specifically was like if you wanted to do a winged liner. So if you want to add like a little wing and eyeliner to your lid, one of the challenges with hooded eyes is that either if you did any kind of color eyeshadow, your hood would cover the eyeshadow and then you would only see the winged liner. And that's something that I kind of had a challenge with until I learned this little trick, and now I do this all the time, and I really, really like the finished result of it. Is what you do is you take a black long wear eyeliner, so like a gel eyeliner, not the liquid type, the pencil type, and you line your inner upper rim, so underneath your eyelashes. You line that in black. It does take a little bit of practice. Usually what I do is I just kind of position it and then just kind of like blink into it. But you line underneath your eyelashes in black, and then you just need to do the tiniest, thinnest line when you do a liner on the top of your lid, because the liner underneath your lash just makes it look that much thicker. And then also when you add mascara, it just makes your mascara look much more, like it has much more volume. You just get this really, you get a much more dramatic, volumized, defined look there without having to do as much work. So since I've learned that, I do that all the time now, and I love it. And then the other thing I have found with hooded eyes is that you can deal with a lot of creasing. So you'll put eyeshadow on your eyelid, and then throughout the day, because the upper lid or this part of your eye is kind of folding over, is that it can cause creasing in your eyeshadow. It can cause it to wear away. And the thing that I've learned that has helped the most with that is using either a primer, or I like to use concealer. So I started off with a primer. I didn't even know that existed, and I was like, what, eye primer? So I started off with primer, and that did help. And then I've moved on to now using concealer to kind of prep my lid. And you can also use that to create a new like eyelid shape. So I can make my eyelids look bigger than they actually are because of the hood. And it just makes your eyeshadow stick down so much better. So those are two little tips. I'm not going to go into full detail because obviously this is not a makeup podcast. I've already talked way too long about this. What I would say is that if any of this information seems interesting to you, is just go check out the videos where people who know a lot more than I do have put together different tutorials and stuff. There are tons on there on how to work with hooded eyes. There are tons on there how to work with most issues that you may have, like if you're like me and your skin is getting older and you've got little crinkles that you're dealing with. There are full channels and there are full tutorials on how to kind of work with that and different tips and tricks. There are people with channels of all ethnicities and all ages, and so I have found it really helpful to find a few channels that are very similar just to my skin type and my skin tone and just my makeup preferences, because then when they show things or they do tutorials, I know that it's likely going to work for me as well. So I think that can also be very helpful, is go on there, find some channels that you identify with, and you might find that it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. If you're interested in makeup at all, it's just a lot of fun. So yeah, if you have any other questions, just let me know, and I can address them somehow. But I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed this episode as a whole. That's all I have to talk about for today. I hope you have a wonderful weekend with lots and lots of crafting, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.